Today I'm talking to Zac Whitley, who works at Watermark Church, and we're talking about the partnership between a nonprofit and a church, how that relationship is supposed to work, examples where it doesn't work, and how to pick a good church partner and how a church partner to pick a good nonprofit.
Who is OurCalling? What does OurCalling do to help the homeless?
The nonprofit.
We care with dignity.
OurCalling.
Can't help but think about the definition of Christian.
We connect with intentionality.
Called OurCalling.
It's to our calling.
We build community with integrity.
This is Our Calling and our podcast, a word on the streets about homelessness. I'm here with my friend Zac from Watermark, and your role is specifically what?
My role is specifically for city engagement. So I'm the director of city engagement at Watermark Community Church.
City engagement, what does that mean? Like Watermark's in a city, so that's like everything? What does that mean?
Yeah, the city of Dallas is big, and it could be everything, but specifically, we mobilize the body. We mobilize Watermark Community Church to transform the community, and we're doing that through 9 different buckets of ministry. Things like schools, prisons, poverty alleviation, homelessness, 9 different areas, as well as 20 nonprofit partners. OurCalling is an example of that.
So really, your focus, I'm going to say this in a different language, is local outreach in the community?
That's right. Local missions, local outreach.
Local missions?
Yeah.
So you're like a missions pastor, but without the passport.
Just your friendly local missions pastor.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, and we're talking about how churches and nonprofits partner together. And sometimes it's great, sometimes it's chaos. And what we want to learn is from you is what Watermark does to partner with churches. I mean, I'm sure there's, in a city as big as Dallas, with a church as impactful as Watermark with so many different members, I'm sure you get lots of nonprofits that knock on your door, want to partner, have some kind of ideas of what that relationship looks like. I'm sure you're having some partners that have been good experiences, some that have not been so good. I know I can tell you from our perspective, we've had church partners that have been terrible church partners and some that have been wonderful church partners. And you're here because Watermark is a great relationship with OurCalling. Yeah. But we want to learn, what does it take to have a healthy relationship between a church and a nonprofit as we focus on serving the homeless community? So where do you think that starts?
Well, Wayne, I'm honored that you would have me here to talk about that. And we have a ton of fun with you and your crew. And I think this is a great example of a healthy, productive, impactful partnership. Really, highlight of my work is getting to do things like this with our partners across the city. And yes to all those things that you said in terms of people knock on the door every day to have a relationship or say, how can we get Watermark's support? Either finances or volunteers, all those things. And getting to walk through conflict resolution with partners, getting to walk through significant funding opportunities with partners, all of those things. But I think I'd categorize building powerful partnerships into 3 different buckets for the sake of our conversation today. And so that looks like being on mission together, having fun together in that mission, prioritizing partnership and finding the sweet spot between biblical commands, community needs, and church or partnership strengths. And then lastly, mobilizing volunteers into mutually impactful discipleship opportunities.
So let me just tell you, let me just say that we're cheating here. You and I have done this discussion before.
Yeah.
We spoke together at the church leadership conference at Watermark.
That's right.
This is our material. We just wanted to kind of redo it here in this format and actually have more of a candid one-on-one conversation. So start at the very beginning. When you said being on mission together, the second one was what?
Yeah, so the first one, being on mission together.
Yep.
The second one, prioritizing partnership in the sweet spot. Think of a Venn diagram of the sweet spot of biblical commands, community needs, and then church or partnership strengths.
And the third?
The third, mobilizing people into mutually impactful discipleship opportunities.
Man, you sound so professional and prepared, like you wrote this down before or something.
We have done this before, but I feel like I'm more in the hot seat because I think at our church leaders conference, I was asking you from a partner's perspective, how can a church be a good partner? And today, it's a little bit more of, as a church, how can the church be a great partner to nonprofits across our city?
So start with the first one, being on mission together. From a church's perspective, what does that mean?
Yeah, so, I mean, specifically at Watermark, we're abiding in Jesus, making disciples together. And so at a high level, we want the organization's missions to align in that way. And that's what I love about OurCalling, because you want to make disciples on the streets. And that goes two ways. You don't want to just make disciples of the homeless community, leading them to Jesus and then off the streets, but you also want to make disciples of the people serving, of me when I come to serve with you, to be a better follower of Jesus myself, and then love and serve my neighbor in the homeless community even better. And so at a high level, I mean, our missions align. And then perhaps as just local missions teams, they've probably got some values or missions of their own. For example, some of ours are to have collaborative partnerships. Watermark does not have a homeless ministry outreach run by Watermark or a Watermark leader. We partner with OurCalling for that purpose. We trust the experts to be the experts and collaborate in partnership that way.
So when you partner with a group that's on mission together, does that mean, and I'm going to be very specific here, do you partner with organizations that aren't necessarily Christ-centered, presenting the gospel, proselytizing? If you said your focus is evangelism and discipleship kind of focus, should the church partner with organizations that are believers doing great work, but not necessarily from a missional perspective, evangelizing?
That's a good question, and maybe I'd rather be descriptive than prescriptive.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on your context in your church. For Watermark, we've got a great opportunity to be great stewards of resources, and Watermark is unique. And so, to answer your specific question of do we partner with organizations that don't proselytize, that aren't evangelical, or wouldn't allow volunteers to share the gospel, we would say no. I wouldn't choose to partner with them. But Dallas is a city where there is a uniquely high level of nonprofits, and we can be more selective with our resources, with time, talent, and treasure. But we also have a value that we want to go out and serve with good deeds and good works. We don't want to just roll up our sleeves and go out and do good works for the sake of the gospel. That's valuable, that's important. But we also want to have words. We want to go out and be able to share our faith and be able to partner both of those things together.
And I love it because sometimes you guys volunteer in areas where you're sharing your faith in organizations that aren't necessarily Christian, but they still give you an opportunity, right, to be the hands and feet of Christ. I think of the schools,
Yeah,
right?
That's what came to mind too. Yeah, and so even in my answer, like in the school systems, you're up against a certain speed limit, and you got to follow the speed limit within the schools. And you can't share your faith with a student openly unless they ask you a question. And so we partner with faith-based organizations within schools for mentorship, and we partner with Young Life. And they all have a different system that they ebb and flow with either the rules of the principal or the rules as a district as a whole. But again, we want to have the opportunity to be able to have good news and good works in what we do.
I love that. Good news and good works. Practical applications of this, we've had churches that have come to us with a very different mission. Sometimes they're trying to solve a problem that we don't think is a problem, or they're trying to do things in a very different way than we are. And we've got, so many different examples of this. I think the ones that I find most offensive is when groups come down to serve the homeless community as though it's a petting zoo, right? They want a safari of poverty. They want to see one, touch one, take a selfie with one, as though they've done some magical good thing. And letting people see what they do is more important than the actual people they're serving. And in some ways, they can want to exploit the people that we serve with photos and with media. I can think of groups that won't show up unless they can bring cameras, right? Unless they can make it a big kind of production piece. Yeah. And to me, that's just super, super offensive. But not only that, it is contrary to the mission. Right? You said it's got to be, being on mission together. It's contrary to the mission of what we're trying to do. Yeah. Another way is we have some organizations that want to analyze us like a hedge fund. And they want to look at very specifics, and even some churches that do that on inputs, outputs, outcomes. And as we're trying to see spiritual fruit, we're trying to see things, we're trying to produce fruit that we can't grow, right? Spiritual fruit is created by the Lord, and the Holy Spirit's growing up people, and we can contribute to the process, but we can't make fruit grow, right? So to me, it's important that missionally we're aligned on, we want to see people walk with Jesus and get off the streets. And it's neat to have a church partner and find church partners that's a priority to them too.
Yeah. I think you'd say, let me just outline some of our values, because I know we share them. And so the values to our external focus team of how we're going out locally and globally are collaborative partnerships, good news, good works, relationship and discipleship, equipping the saints for the work of ministry. And by that, I mean, our city team is not the one doing the work. It's the hands and feet of Jesus, the church coming out to do that. Having impact over activity, and then having development over relief. And so I'm thinking of an example of just being a good church partner and knowing that you value this as well. When we bring a group out to serve, I would hate for anyone to see us as coming to do it for the sake of Watermark, to have the name in bright lights, and we're here for the publicity of Watermark. We want to be really sensitive to the discipleship opportunity of our volunteers and not adding more work to your plate or your team's plate, right? Your volunteer coordinators. And so we're intentional of trying not to have just a Watermark serve day where we come out with 200, 300 people. And now we might have done this in the past though, but we've learned and we've grown. And our latest is we love to come out with 15, 20 people on a Saturday where you're already doing specific outreach or specific onboarding, and integrate into what you're already doing to try and not create more work for your team, and just plug into the existing rhythms of your ministry.
That is so beautiful, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking of a very particular church, I won't mention their name, in Dallas, that wants to come down and take over OurCalling on a Saturday. They want to put up a sign that has their church's name, that they're doing this thing to serve the homeless community at our facility, which is great. We'd love for them to come, but then they want to change what we do. They want to do things their way, the things that they think are important to the way that they want to serve the homeless community. In fact, doing some things that we think are dangerous, not really helping people where they are. For example, we give out a lot of resources here, but we do that with accountability. You're going to come in, you're experiencing homelessness, we're going to look you up, Zach, you're going to ask for a pair of shoes, our system's going to say, sorry, bro, you got shoes last week. We want to make sure there's enough shoes to go around. We know shoes are one of the most traded commodities on the streets. For people that don't have cash, they're bartering something. But then we have groups that come down and want to bring a truckload of shoes and give everybody 3 pairs of shoes, right? Or they come down and they want to give away an amount or a kind of item that we know is actually dangerous or not very helpful. For example, we don't give out tents. Years ago, we gave out tents. I mean, I personally bought thousands of tents and given them out. Then I got convicted that that's not the best way to help the people that we serve, that we want to help them get off the street, not help them camp there for the rest of their lives, because the longer they stay there, the sooner they'll die there. So for us, our philosophy is really, how do we help you walk with Jesus and get off the streets? And helping you set up a camp with tents and all these supplies and a basketball goal and all these resources isn't helping you leave. It's helping you get comfortable in a really deadly and dangerous scenario. So having an aligned mission is so important. And I love the humility of a church that says, look, we just want to come and be a part of what you guys are doing. And honestly, it's like a donor that says, I don't want anybody to know my name. I just want to give the money because it's the Lord's work and I want to support that. Versus someone that, kind of wants their name on everything, like a church. We want our name on everything to say, look at what we're doing, we're so cool. And so I love the idea of just embedding into what nonprofits are currently doing and doing it in a way that honors, the strategy that nonprofits have figured out works, like in our space, that we don't tell Watermark how to do church, and you guys don't tell us how to work with the homeless community. We both can invest in each other in those areas. We both can give each other feedback, but we rely on each other for the expertise that we have, and we trust each other in that relationship. One
of the things that I really admire about y'all and high value for both of us is that relationship and discipleship component and being in the relationship business. We're helping people with their spiritual poverty, that they don't have that relationship with Jesus perhaps, or they're not following him as closely as perhaps, or they don't understand life transformation perhaps. And if we're bringing in 300 people, the relationship piece gets harder and harder. The proximity piece gets harder and harder. And when we've got relationship and discipleship with the ability to get closer to one-on-one and closer to individuals, even thinking of coming down to OurCalling is a 30-minute drive, and how we encourage our church to get out on the corner as they turn out of our church to engage in courageous conversations for the sake of relationship and discipleship. I mean, that's when transformation happens. It brings people closer to one another, reconciles them to one another. More importantly, the hope of reconciling them to God, and then really getting to the root issues of why they find themselves where they are today.
Yeah, I think about the mission of Watermark is not just something they said from the pulpit. It's something that you guys have really lived out in your relationships with us as an organization. And I'll just be blunt and a little bit honest here with me personally, right? I remember a lunch that you and I had years ago with Blake.
Yeah.
Right, when Blake had just become the lead pastor of the church. And we were sitting, and he was meeting all the different nonprofits, I guess, so you probably took me to lunch along with a bunch of the other people. But we sat at a cafe together and to have lunch. And Blake says, "Hey, Wayne, so tell me all about what's going on with OurCalling," and start telling him all the stuff. And about 10 minutes into the lunch, he goes, "Okay, pause, that's enough. Appreciate that. That's awesome, cool. Now I want to learn about Wayne. How's Wayne doing? Mm-hmm. How's your walk with the Lord? Mm-hmm. How's your marriage? How are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I sat there at that table and I got emotional. And I was thinking, wow, he doesn't just care about the organization and the opportunities for his church. Mm-hmm. He cares about me. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't him putting on a show. That's not just who Blake is. That's who Watermark leadership is, right? Investing in people, that aligned mission, that relationship is so important. Not just relationship between watching OurCalling staff work with someone experiencing homelessness, that relation, and not just the relationship of teaching the members at Watermark how to be relational with the homeless guy on the corner down by the street, but the relational opportunity that your staff has had in ministering to me personally.
Yeah.
And I've seen that with so many of our staff. That's just beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Abiding in Jesus, we're making disciples together, and that's the togetherness. I mean, partnership is so much more than butts and seats for volunteering or putting money into your mission. Those are important, but I think partnership is so much more than that. When you're able to operate out of values, mission, operate out of a sweet spot.
And a little bit of additional vulnerability here. So my wife and I started attending Watermark about 4 years ago, and I think it was after Blake and I had met for lunch. And, you know, we were looking for a church home, and we knew a lot of people at Watermark, and the opportunity there was beautiful. But our relationship as a member of Watermark has no bearing on our relationship as an organization, because the relationship with the organization is many years old.
Yeah.
Where the relationship as a member attending a church now you and I are co-members at a church, where before, you know, you're just another church partner guy that we try to connect with and, you know, try to chase down.
Yeah.
But now I can text you weird things at church.
Yeah, that's right. I get to work with a lot of other executive directors, CEOs that are not Watermark members, and I hope they feel the same level of care and connection that you do as the leader of OurCalling and the member at Watermark. But I love getting to pray with you, see you at Men's Bible Study, plug your whole team into our church leadership conference. We've done dozens of things together that have been a lot of fun, and it's fun getting to do it with a church member, with a fellow Watermark member, but that certainly has no bearing. We're not exclusive to Watermark members in our partnerships.
I mean, yeah, y'all were inviting our staff to the church leadership conference before, you know, we were members. So, and I just think it's so consistent in what you guys do.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second area you said is prioritize partnership, right?
Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah, specifically, I'm a visual person, and this has always stood out to me.
Yep.
And so think of a Venn diagram of 3 circles, And we want to operate out of the sweet spot of church strengths, biblical commands, and community needs. And so where all of those overlap is where Watermark chooses to invest. And so church strengths, recovery ministry, volunteers, people that want to dive into that head on is a strength at Watermark.
Okay.
That aligns with the biblical commands of loving our neighbor or seeking the welfare of our city.
Yeah.
And then community needs. It is no secret to anyone that attends Watermark that the homeless population, those experiencing homelessness, that's on the rise. And that seems to be getting even like closer and closer to our church, which raises the level of awareness and raises the value of engagement. So combine those three things and you've got an area of overlap, which has helped us define homelessness as an area of opportunity and an area of investment. And that's why we've chosen to partner with OurCalling.
The last part of that was biblical commands. So this Venn diagram, what are the biblical commands in there that you think are important for that priority?
Yeah. I think of Jesus saying, when you fed me, when you clothed me, when you met me in my need, when you met anyone with those, then you did that also to me. Or love the Lord with all your heart, soul, strength, mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And getting to work with OurCalling, it's really helped me redefine who my neighbor is and how to apply that and live that out every day.
So you talked about the gifts and strengths of Watermark and how they overlap with the needs in the community with biblical commands, right? That is building a lens, if you would, that Watermark uses to determine who would be a good partner, right? So give some examples, of how those lenses have led you guys away from opportunities, or how that lens has led you toward an opportunity.
That's a great question.
So I'll give you an example. So if an organization knocks on your door and wants to be a partner with Watermark, how would this lens make you look at an organization and say, it's probably not a good fit?
Yeah. Well, it's the rubric that we used to establish each of our, what we call impact areas. And the impact area is the sweet spot. It's why we've said yes as a church to clearly invest in prisons, in public schools, caring for children, caring for the vulnerable, caring for the poor, caring for those in prison, going to visit them. It's why we said yes to those things. And so we defined those 9 areas of ministry first through that sweet spot, and then aligned each of our partnerships within those areas.
Okay.
And so I think of our anti-sex trafficking team, and it happens to be an area of where we overlap too. When we see the woman at the well, even in Jesus's compassion and ensuring that she not just has her needs met and bridges built and stereotypes broken and shattered, and sharing that like he is the one true way that she's going to quench her thirst. We see the need to address anti-sex trafficking in that, because on our corners, as we're coming out, we see women being exploited.
Yeah.
We see women being treated as a commodity. We know out of our work in homelessness, there's a high overlap with women experiencing homelessness. And then within our church, we had a handful of leaders raise their hand and say, we want to champion this effort. We want to lean in and we want to start the street outreach team. And we want to start the strip club team. And we want to partner with OurCalling, Refuge for Women, and a couple other partners over the years. And so each of these ministry opportunities that we've said yes to is all because they've aligned with that ministry sweet spot. And you can take that one click further and even thinking about our specific partnership and thinking about ways that Watermark can then specifically invest in OurCalling. And so, yeah, it's great. We want to introduce the next 100 people to OurCalling and be serving here because we love the work that you're doing. But we also want to have that impact over activity where Watermark's unique church strengths can do unique and specific things for you other than checking people in, other than folding t-shirts, other than helping people get their showers and clothes washed. We want to be able to help with things like IT or finding board members or providing health care. We want to find unique, specific, impactful ways that our members, our church members, can use their gifts specifically for our calling.
One example of this is an area where we really need some expertise. So we have medical needs here in the homeless community, and we have 3 different medical providers that show up here. But one of those is Watermark Health. So you guys have a little tiny home on wheels, right? You bring it up here, and it's a mobile clinic, right? They're doing full-scale medical clinic. They'll do sutures, and they'll give prescriptions, and I mean, it's doctors doing real stuff, right? During inclement weather, we need help, and it's hard to get medical providers to come out when there's needs, and Watermark Health comes and it helps us. But where I think it's been really great for us, in addition to those, to rely on the wisdom and the knowledge and the strength of Watermark, is as we're building a tiny home community, and we're trying to figure out how to design a clinic and what are the medical needs of these residents that are going to be moving in there, Watermark Health has provided some very unique leadership in what a clinic needs and what serving this community looks like from a medical perspective, right? I can tell you what needs to go in the van that does street outreach for our team, but I don't know what kind of medical challenges. I mean, I can probably come up with a list, but not from the expertise of a medical provider. And so one of those strength areas that Watermark has, they are blessing us and helping us design and then eventually run a clinic for our tiny home community, which is really cool.
It's really cool.
One of the
really
ways
exciting.
they did that is they did a survey with a lot of our guests here to figure out what are the major health issues, what are the ongoing challenges, and as surveying them as they do, continue to serve here, they're coming up with this list of, okay, these are the needs, these are the problems we're going to have, these are the medications we're going to need on site, these are the physical pieces we're going to need for wound care, for all those kind of things, and they're helping us become better at our job by using their strengths here.
Yeah. 2 things that come to mind is if you're a church leader listening and you don't know the strengths that are sitting in your seats, sitting in your pews, find a way to survey that. At Watermark, we've, over the years, surveyed how people want to use their gifts or the professions that they're in that might be beneficial or those credentials, certifications that they have that we might be able to leverage. Healthcare is a great example of that. We always joke it's really important to have someone holding the door and greeting people as they come in. If that person is a doctor or a dentist, maybe there's a better way or a different way you can use their strengths as long as they're willing to do so. And we know a lot of our members through surveying them, the relationships we have, getting to know them. But then nonprofit leader, you do a great job of making sure that you alert us of your needs. You ask the question. Walking up here today, I got to talk to your volunteer team. And I know this week they met with our leader over our prison ministry to talk about how to onboard and utilize volunteer hours from formerly incarcerated individuals. And how do they do that well? How do they set boundaries? How do they navigate certain charges or offenses that someone might have on their record? Well, your team was proactive and took the initiative and knew the ministries and the leaders that we had because of the relationship, and they sought Watermark out. They sought, not me, but they sought our leader of prison ministry out, the expert, to ask the questions.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that come and do community service here, and they're required to by law to get their hours in, and then our team has to figure out, okay, how do we connect them well and how do we serve them well, recognizing that they just have some unique challenges. And some unique struggles because of unique history. So that's cool.
Your facility team has come and toured Watermark to learn about our facilities, our structure, the tickets, the repairs, all those things. Our security teams have traded trainings on how to be warm and welcoming, but also secure in what we do. Our teams get to throw softballs back to each other so often.
And
it's
that
a lot of fun.
relationship is so unique. So we have churches that will call us and say, hey, we got one behind the building. Like we're, some kind of animal services and there's a rabid dog, and they'll talk about someone experiencing homelessness at their facility as though they want us to come deal with the problem. Versus a church that says, hey, we have some people that experience homelessness that come to Regen, that come to our singles ministry on Monday night, that come to church on Sunday, and we want to know how to serve them well. We want to know how to partner with you guys and some of them are going to be members at the church, and you want to have members that are cared for in unique ways. Some of them are just visitors at the church, and you want to know how to gracefully help them find their way and connect to services that they need. That's a partnership that's very unique.
Yeah.
To me, every time I think about it, it just makes me so happy because I've seen the opposite so many times. One ways that Watermark has helped us is, we've built some really cool software, and at many points along the road, we've needed wisdom that we didn't have. You always pray to the Lord of the harvest to send workers. It's not just because there's a lot of labor, but sometimes it's very specific labor that you're really not sure how to do. And so years ago, one of your staff led a charge to help us build a technology advisory committee.
Yeah.
With technology guys, most of them are from Watermark, some of them aren't, and they're members or staff members there that really have an experience in building a software company, understanding the stages of the startup process, understanding the go-to-market strategies and technology and how to build the platforms and enterprise-level stuff. It's really provided such a great wisdom and breadth of knowledge here that's been really, really cool.
Yeah. You got a few Watermark guys still doing that today.
Yeah, I think we poached a few guys off your staff.
That's right. I love every winter. Well, let me rephrase that. Winter's really hard when you do inclement weather.
Yeah.
And you take over the response for sheltering hundreds of individuals when it's freezing cold. And it makes me think of the uniqueness of our partnership of you getting to work in Fair Park and taking over a building and turning it into a homeless shelter overnight, so that way people aren't dying on the streets. And it has been a joy of Watermark Health getting to come and set up a pop-up clinic there. It has been a joy getting to send young adults who just have a fire and a spirit for adventure and service to come down. They load up their four-wheel drive trucks and come and drop off blankets and sweats, or our team even just coming to get to serve and bring in a dozen people with us all in one car and serving on those days, or making connections to like-minded organizations like Texans on Mission, formerly Texas Baptist Men, who come and deliver food and work with you guys. And so it's just really fun that we've created this little ecosystem of pointing to one another and
it's fun.
Working alongside each other.
Each church has their own little gig, right? The thing they want to help with. And when, we step in and help with inclement weather, and it's not just an OurCalling thing. We partner with a lot of organizations, Austin Street and others to put it together with the police department and fire department in the city. Watermark serves in a very unique way. I'm going to raise another partner of ours that's not a church. It's the East Plano Islamic Center, the mosque.
Yeah.
Right? So they'll text me in the middle of ice and say, what you need, And it's so cool because years ago, the way this happened is I said, hey, we need some blankets. They sent a message out to the entire mosque, and their message was, everybody be at the mosque within an hour with an armful of blankets.
Wow.
And then they rented or had 3 box trucks that they filled up. Instead of trying to get thousands of people to come see us, 3 box trucks showed up full to the ceiling. I mean, we made a pile that was like 15 feet tall.
That's amazing.
Of blankets. And that's just so cool that that's what they could do.
Yeah.
Right? So every group serves in their own way. We have some churches that say, we want to cover a meal for the staff, or we want to help provide medical services. And so that's just really, really cool.
Man, the Islamic Association doing that. I hope it's like a healthy level of competition. And I'm like, come on, church.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
let's respond in that way. But then also, like, what a great discipleship opportunity of when Jesus says, like, how you love and serve, they will know that you're my disciples. Man, I hope the Islamic Association saw all these people in their green, loving and serving. And hopefully churches were there too. And they thought, wow, what's different? What's different about this crew?
We love our Muslim brothers and sisters. And if any of them watch this, salam alaikum, we just love the relationship that we have there. I got invited to the mosque to speak at the breaking of the fast service. And I got up and I talked about Jesus and why what we do is, in all the religious texts in the world, we all focus intently on these words that only Jesus said. Jesus, the Son of God, who said, love your neighbor as yourself. And that's the example we're trying to set. And that's the one we're really trying to follow because he's the only one that connects us to the Father, right? And getting an opportunity to communicate with them as we serve together is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So Watermark Health, Tech Advisory Board. I'm going over my notes here. Inclement weather. The last one you said was mobilize volunteers. Explain that.
Yeah. So really elevating impactful partnerships. Again, right? We want to mobilize volunteers into mutually impactful discipleship opportunities. And so when we point people to OurCalling by impactful, I mean, folding shirts is great. There's a purpose for that. Serving food is great and wonderful. But I want to be intentional to where and how we're serving, that we're not folding the same shirts that you folded yesterday, or we're not giving out turkeys to the homeless community for Thanksgiving dinner, all things that you value too. And so we want to be intentional that when people are mobilized, I want to follow where that mobilization effort goes. And so when we've got people out, people out being the hands and feet of Jesus, I want to lean in and I want to support the efforts that they're supporting. I want to say yes to the things that they're doing. We want to equip the saints for the work of ministry. And so I follow where those hands and feet go. And I want to say yes to really pouring gasoline on their fire wherever they're at, to provide them with the support that they need, if that's a budget, provide them with the support that they need, if that's increased administrative capacity or finding leaders. And I want them being able to do impactful ministry and removing as many barriers as possible, both on the church side and the partner side.
Okay, I'm shaking my head as you're saying this because I
hope
can
it's
think
a good head shake.
Yes, I can think of so many bad examples. So here we serve 4,000 meals a week. And we have a big facility, right? People come in here. We're distributing clothes every day. We have a church service here, Bible studies, recovery class, showers, laundry, all this stuff, right? It's amazing to me that a church will organize an opportunity to bring their cars down and park across the street.
Do it right outside.
And serve a meal while we're serving a meal. And pass out clothes while we're passing out clothes. Like, are their clothes better than ours? Or their meal better than... It's like, why are we not serving together?
Yeah.
Right? Why do we have this competition thing? So years ago, we started this Thanksgiving event, and it got to be huge. I mean, we'd have 1,000 people show up, right? And it was really cool because when we started doing this years ago, there was no other Thanksgiving event. Everybody's got Christmas events. There wasn't really a Thanksgiving event for the homeless community. But then it got to be like a competition where groups would try to put on, outdo each other. And it got to be so crazy that some churches would try to host a Thanksgiving event at their church. So they would bring buses down and pick up all of our people from our event and take them away to their church on Thanksgiving to do their special Thanksgiving thing, instead of partnering with us, because the day after Thanksgiving, that church doesn't have much to offer that people to help them really walk with Jesus and get off the streets. In fact, those same churches, the day after, if a guy was to show up there, they'd say, turn around and go back to OurCalling. Like, why not serve together, right? Partner with us together. So now we do our Thanksgiving event the day before Thanksgiving, which our staff really loves, so they can go home. But really just gives us an opportunity because we have hundreds of church partners, and some serve in really strategic ways, and some of them just send people to serve with us. All of those are important. But to serve with us, beside us, contributing in their own special way. Mobilizing volunteers is so important because we need people to serve in very specific areas, like you said. We have a CFO. We have financial responsibilities, a fiduciary role here, and having people that can provide financial oversight or insight is important. We have an administrative team, our chief people officer, and we're hiring people and have HR challenges and how are we going to do staff benefits, and having conversations with some people in your staff are like, well, how do y'all do benefits? And, some of those conversations that, we need to know from your ops team, we need to know from your security team is really been beautiful. But one of the practical ways I think we've been able to work together is some of the training that you do with your staff members once a month. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So we have a process in place that's a staff on call. And so we're fortunate at Watermark, we have about 250 staff members. And with that, just keeping on topic, I would say every day at Watermark, there's 2 or 3 individuals experiencing homelessness that walk in to Watermark. And so we've got a process in place where it is no one team's job, and it's also not everybody's job, because if it's everybody's job, it's nobody's job. We have a rotating system of 4 staff on call. And these 4 people, 2 men, 2 women, are ready at all times to field whatever comes.
Any question?
Yep. Any phone call, any walk-in, marriage, addiction, homelessness, battered abuse, young, old, anything. We've got 4 people always on call. And so when that happens, they're quickly notified, and they come and meet them within 5 minutes or less. And so what our team has done, what our local outreach team has done, is been able to step in on a monthly training. And all staff receive training on what does it mean to be staff on call. How are you prepared for these things? How are you faithful? How are you prayed up? How are you approaching this not alone, always taking someone with you? And then we get to speak, train, teach specifically on homelessness. And so over the course of the year, all 200 staff have been trained on what does it look like to engage in conversations, and then specifically what does it look like in fielding that conversation and connection with someone experiencing homelessness, as well as what's the value in our calling. And I hope that your receptionist or whoever fields the phone calls here isn't getting 5 phone calls a day from Watermark staff because they just pick it up and say, "Our calling, come and pick them up, help us out." No, we're intentional that this is an opportunity to get to sit and diagnose and build relationship. You've taught us all that the number one reason someone's experiencing homelessness is because of a loss of community. Well, at Watermark, I think we have a strength and we excel in what community is. And so our staff gets to sit with them, learn about them, who they are, where they've been, where they're going, and ultimately invite them to church on Sunday or invite them to recovery on Monday night, or get to engage with them through our calling and stick by their side throughout that process.
I love it. Because community is so important, we're reminded that community is your middle name, Watermark Community Church.
Yeah.
One last story. I got a call one day from a friend of mine who's an elder at a church, and he said, "Wayne, we have to have an emergency meeting with our elders. Can you join us?" I'm like, "What did I do? I don't even go to your church. What did I break?" And so the next day they scheduled this call. It was all on Zoom just so we could do it quickly. And they called and they said the craziest story. He said, "Wayne, we have a sex offender in our church," which honestly, that conversation I've had with 100 churches, but the rest of the conversation went in a completely different direction. "Hey, Wayne, we have a sex offender in our church. We want to know how to minister to him well. We don't want to just kick him to the streets because we recognize that not many churches are going to welcome him. Yeah. And we want to know with healthy boundaries how we, as the men of the church, can walk beside him and what should we do?" And it's interesting because I have, in this space and doing this for so long, I know people with every criminal background, the nightmare kind of horror stuff, right? Including those that have committed sexual offenses. And yes, those are horrible crimes. And yes, Jesus is an amazing redeemer. And to watch a church say, "Hey, how can we minister to this guy?"
Yeah.
And, creating a plan with that church on one-on-one and even multiple on-one discipleship with this man, some inside the church, some outside the church, and some supervised locations he can go and things he can do and things he can't do. But being able to say, "Hey, this church really wanted to welcome this guy, and they wanted input from a partner organization to figure out, tell us how we can minister well to him."
Yeah.
Which is completely different, right? I know churches in town, again, I won't mention names. I had a guy I knew, a homeless guy who was a sex offender, and he went through the entire membership process of a church. It was like 12 weeks long. And on the 12th week, they're supposed to show up at church, and all the new members are announced at the front of the church with the pastor, and everybody comes down and shakes their hand, kind of a scenario. That day, they're all supposed to show up early and go in the front and get ready, and he shows up at the church, and the church just surrounds him with security guards and says, "We know who you are. We know what you did. You can't ever come back here again. If you ever step foot on our property, we're going to write you a ticket." Yeah. Which I understand. We have to have healthy boundaries. laws are laws, and when they're broken, it's important that we understand how to be judicious and keep people safe and protected. And we have a leper that needs to be ministered to, who's been kicked out of the community, and we have to find a way how to be the hands and feet of Christ, even in an awkward scenario. And it's fun to see churches on the flip side of trying to figure out how to minister to people and not just how to push them off.
Yeah, you want someone, whether it's here or at the church, to feel home.
Yeah.
You had a guest that said it really well. I hope his name's Obi. And it was about showing unconditional love to anyone that has any number of strikes. Because if we have a strikeout system in place at our church or at our nonprofit organization, where is someone going to feel at home? Mm-hmm. And where are they going to find that hope? And where are they going to be able to trust that they can come back to for safety or know that they're forgiven? Where are they going to get that sense, that beautiful mirror image of their creator, if the church or OurCalling can't offer that?
So as we kind of wrap up here, what are some ways that a nonprofit could start the journey of becoming a good partner with the church? And I know we've gone over those, but how would you summarize it? Or what are some ways that they, some steps they could take to look for a church that could partner with them?
Yeah, so we covered being on mission together, finding your sweet spot of partnership for your strengths, the biblical commands, community needs, and then mobilizing volunteers for mutually impactful discipleship opportunities. And so I would say, lead with mission. Give the church, give partnership a place in doing that work together first. It's so influential and so formative to know where the church is already serving, so I can be a faithful steward to resources. And so just tell the story, paint the picture of not only how your mission aligns, but how you're coming alongside the church to be on mission together. And then find that sweet spot, find unique ways, make specific asks of your partners, of your churches, on ways that they can help bear more fruit and make your mission more effective. Mm-hmm. Just work out of that sweet spot. And then lastly, I think find the meaningful and the right size opportunities to plug people into. And so we all have very busy schedules and have a lot of events that are competing for time, competing for values. And so I'm not just talking about someone's user experience, but find meaningful ways where they get to see the mission in action and they know they're a part of it and they get to see the gospel at work, to just set that hook, to use a good fishing metaphor, to just bring them back. Make it worth my time to come and serve, to use my strengths, to share the gospel, and to see the fullness of that picture of God at work. That's going to break down walls in me. That's going to break down walls in my place of service and who I'm serving, that I don't know why someone wouldn't want to come back, that they find their purpose and their place of where they get to invest their time that way.
Something that was interesting when we first started partnering with Watermark is the church approached us because members were already serving with us.
Yeah.
And it's kind of opposite for us to knock on a door at a church and say, hey, you don't know who we are, would you come? And I think there's times when we've done that. But this was really unique because, when Watermark leadership came to us and said, hey, we've got some people serving here, we want to know more about it. Mm-hmm. And then Watermark actually appointed some of their members that were already serving with us to kind of be the champion of OurCalling at their church and a liaison. And, to me, that's just a beautiful relationship that actually didn't come from the top down, didn't come from the leaders of two organizations getting together and figuring this out. It came from the bottom up. Yeah. People in the body serving together with our neighbors experiencing homelessness, and it opened doors to bring a church and a nonprofit together in a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, if you can inspire and invite someone, right? If you can do both of those things, I think you've got a greater opportunity for them to say yes and come and serve. And there's no better person than the church member, than the person that's already here serving, to be that megaphone, to be the inspiration and the invitation, to have them tell their story. No one knows who Zac is, but if someone who is serving here faithfully, consistently gets to tell their story and share that, not just in a hollow invitation and not just a story without a call to action, but pairing invitation and inspiration, I think that's a catalyst to so many people saying yes.
So church members that are already serving at a nonprofit, to go to their church leadership and say, hey, let me tell you about this place I'm serving.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what I've watched the Lord do in my life by being a part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks for coming. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thanks for having
Love
me.
the relationship with
A lot of
Watermark,
fun.
man. Thanks.
Yeah.